Another insurance transaction taker, or are you ready to become a trusted advisor? In today's world, sales success isn't about being a generalist. It's about mastering your niche. The best agents and brokers don't just sell, they lead. They uncover risks. They provide insights. They understand industries. But this level of expertise doesn't happen by accident. It takes focus, dedication, and a willingness to go deeper than the surface. It means understanding not just the insurance needs, but the business challenges, trends, and opportunities that define your client's world. So ask yourself, are you ready to go beyond the transaction? Are you ready to become the expert your clients can't live without? Are you ready to become a trusted advisor, step into your niche, and step into sales greatness? Let's begin.
And welcome, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, The Power of the Niche, How Specialization Drives Agency Growth and Producer Success. This webinar is sponsored by Coterie and hosted by Insurance Nerds. I am your moderator, Nick Lamparelli. We have two guests with us on this webinar to talk about specialization, to talk about niches, and to talk about how agents and brokers will benefit from having that kind of focus. My guests are John Poucher and Angelo Ocampo. How are you guys doing?
How you doing, Nick?
I'm good.
Doing great.
Good.
Thanks, Nick.
Before we kick into the webinar, guys, why don't each of you do a little elevator pitch? Who are you? What is it that you do? Angelo, go first.
Yes. So I'm the owner of Quick and Easy Insurance. It's a small virtual agency here in Florida. We're licensed in 11 states now, but we primarily work from everybody pretty much works virtually from home. And what we do is pretty much offer commercial insurance, personal and homeowners insurance to our clients or insureds.
Not easy in Florida.
Yes.
So I will be talking about that. John?
Yeah, John Poucher here, Senior Vice President of Agency Distribution at Coterie. Really help with a lot of the distribution initiatives and strategies at Coterie for quite a long time now. The insurance agent has been my customer my entire career in the insurance industry. It's going on many, many years now, but have had passion for a long, long time about working with insurance agents and enabling them to do the best work that they can and have the best agencies that they can have.
Marvelous. Okay, so we're going to have an awesome discussion. First question I'm going to throw out to you, John, Angela, and you can respond after that. Why specialize? Why should agents or brokers specialize or find a particular niche that they should specialize in?
You know, I think that the commercial insurance world is just so big and so deep that I think finding your niche helps you from not boiling the ocean and not focusing on things you get outside of your lane of expertise. When you go deep in a single vertical, you can really become an expert and really have a competitive advantage over other agents in the marketplace who are also trying to do similar business. You get to know the coverages, the very, very unique coverages that can separate winning a deal, losing a deal, protecting your client correctly or incorrectly, versus just being a generalist sometimes and taking a word of the underwriter that is, you know, taking a peanut butter approach, spread approach to their coverages and what they're offering, because sometimes the carriers want to limit their exposure. If you're an agent, you can properly advocate for your client to make sure you have the right coverages in place. And you know the market too. You'll know rating. You'll know everything about that niche or that area typically, and make sure you're giving the best product for your client.
Yeah, Angelo, in terms of niching and specialization, what John said really rings true because the world seems to be getting more complex, right? So coverages are getting more complex as well. If you're not specializing, as John said, you're almost relying on the underwriter. And in that particular case, aren't you just almost like a transaction taker in that insurance buying process?
Well, yes, it gets complicated, especially with commercial insurance. If you don't focus on a particular niche, it's just a headache sometimes, long applications, You don't understand the product. But focusing on the niche, you understand the product, you understand what the customer wants, and you understand what you can consult the customer on. So that's huge, especially if you're trying to save them money. A lot of people will just go and not understand, or a lot of agents not understand a particular product and just sell them just to sell it. But if you understand the product, and then you understand the carrier as well, and if the carrier focuses on that niche, you can save them big time.
Yeah. Does it also help, Angelo, in terms of like risk management as well? If you understand the niche very well, I'm going to use restaurants as an example because I've written about this in the past. And I like food, and not that I have any other affiliation other than that, but like restaurants in particular have like a lot of complex exposures, right, associated with it, including like workers' compensation. You have hired and non-owned auto. Like without that specialization, it to me, it almost seems likely impossible to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the owner and actually understand like, how different slip and falls are going to affect your workers' comp, or why you probably want a decent driver that's delivering your food for you, and like those risk management things. Angela, seems almost impossible for an agent to be that kind of trusted advisor around risk management if they don't have that specialization.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and you can get into it as well a lot with restaurants. You have food contamination, you have spoilage. So there's a lot of factors. But if you understand the product, the carrier understands the product, the carrier understands the risk that they're taking, and you offer great premiums, it's going to be a go-getter, if you can say, for the client. And people love that. People want to see that you understand what they're looking for, and they want an advisor and a consultant when it comes to the insurance, because a lot of people, what they tend to do is they just need to get the insurance, but they don't know what they're getting. But if they get a trusted consultant or a trusted agent, they know what they're getting because you're clearly explaining what you're going to get with your insurance policy.
Yeah. John, when you scan across the different agencies that you work with, how evident is it between the ones that are, we'll call them transaction takers, they're not specializing, they're kind of generalists, and the ones that do specialize? How do you specifically view them and their results?
Well, it's apparent immediately, usually by the types of questions that they're asking. A broker that is focusing on a niche usually is asking very, very detailed form language questions, endorsement questions, things that are very, very nitty gritty. Whereas just a generalist is going to be talking more about rate or maybe some optional coverages here and there, but it's true. You can see it immediately. Performance, usually they do perform better over time because they understand how to properly, frontline underwrite a risk compared to a generalist broker. It's part of the reason program business exists at scale, right? There's you can get so into a niche that you can create your own program. We've seen a lot of agents actually, get so specialized in an area and they teeter over in the program business. They go straight to capacity providers like us and they say, hey, we have this, opportunity. We know it. Here's our underwriting. Here's how we do it. Here's how, maybe it's through an association or some kind of affinity connection. And they can prove results over time. Usually loss ratio does perform better over time because they talk about that risk management over time. If you're actually managing your risk over time and attacking areas where losses do come from, that just performs, the business performs better over time. So for us, we're always looking for that. We're looking for the conversation. We love hearing that from brokers. It's the music to our ears typically. And it depends upon volume and other things, so how far deep and what kind of partnerships you end up having. But we love hearing that and love hearing that from brokers when we have questions like that.
Yeah, you brought up underwriting. Question for both of you. I think when you have that sort of specialization, because you brought up underwriting, in Angelo, probably in many circumstances, you probably understand the risk as well as the underwriter does. Like you almost like a pre-underwriter in many of these cases. And I would guess, like, as you establish your credibility in the niche, you also establish your credibility with the underwriting team as well. So they know, like, hey, this is coming from Angelo, right? And Angelo knows this space as well as we do. There's almost like a degree of integrity and competence that may get you the business faster. Like you might actually have lower operational costs because you're almost pre-underwriting it for the team. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. It makes it much easier just because you already know the questions the underwriter is going to ask. So they already know it's coming from me. They already know that I specialize in this type of industry. So I already know what questions I asked, so the underwriter doesn't have to come back and forth and ask me all these same questions again.
Yeah. John, you must see it on your side with those that do specialize have probably fewer back and forths with the underwriter, and usually the initial submission is probably a more complete than someone who isn't.
Yeah, we don't typically have that because in my past, yes, Coterie, obviously with our frontline digital underwriting algorithm system, we don't really see that. We don't have this kind of back and forth with underwriter that you would traditionally see with a normal carrier. But in past seats where we would see, submissions, I would definitely absolutely see that as a benefit from agents. For us, we can see it in the results because obviously our algorithm is doing a lot of the underwriting, and the agent can control the coverages and the customization that they want for their client through our system. But yeah, they usually come to us offline from our system and say, we have an opportunity. We'd like to focus on this. What can we do to be able to provide the right solution for our clients? And we do see it there. And you can see it immediately if they actually understand this business. They actually truly have a niche, right? Some people claim to, and some are trying to get into one, right? And that's a totally different story. And you're trying to get into one. That's, I think we're going to talk about it later in the call, but we have advice that we'll share there probably.
Well, it's probably a good segue to do something like that. Angelo, what happened? What are the niches that you have specifically focused on, and why did you land on those?
So we usually specialize in small business, more like contractors, restaurants, retail, which Quick and Easy is what it's trying to do is pretty much try to make things quick and easy, if you can say, just like Coterie. It's a very easy and you can say easy to use, fast acting platform where we can just pretty much in less than a minute, you can just get a quick quote. And then if they want to buy, they can buy within, you can say, minutes.
Yeah. When you were getting started with Quick and Easy, Angelo, was there any particular reason to focus on those specific niches? Did you come from contracting or restaurant? Like, did you bring something initially that kind of spurred you?
So initially I used to work personal lines, and then I started a company in Boston where I was the general manager, and I got into commercial lines. And I saw commercial lines was so hectic, and it asked so many questions, and it was these long applications. And what I wanted to do when I started Quick and Easy Insurance is try to make things quick and a lot easier for the client. And it's almost like you can say it intertwines with Coterie, excuse me, where with Coterie, it's so easy, so simple. Just ask what industry are they in, and within, like I said, a couple of seconds, you're getting a quick quote, and it's not a long application, no long underwriting process. You get quotes within seconds, if you can say.
Yeah. John, having been in the space before, if you were advising some of, let's say there's a new agency that's joining Coterie, or new agent, right, new producer, and you were advising them on a niche, how would you go about advising them? Like, here's where you may want to focus on.
Yeah, great question. I'd say use the tools that you have. So, like you asked, do you have any previous experience, history? Were you in the restaurant business? Were you a contractor before? Like, use that, I would say, to help guide you first and foremost. And then from there, you can develop, or relationships. You have relationships with, existing maybe franchise owners. Maybe, a franchise owner that owns, 30 locations of some type of business. You can use that, right, to be the start of diving deep into a niche. I've also see people just focus on line of business, right? There's a lot of CRE people out there focusing on commercial real estate. They focus on workers' comp, or they do workers' comp leading. They just focus on a line of business. So
that's interesting.
There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. And it's just what are you passionate about? What do you have experience? What tools in your toolbox do you have as you're starting out? What's local to you? What do you already have an in with? What do you think is scalable too? I would always look at that. Like, what can you actually build a niche in and have it become something big? If you get something so nichey and it's really small, it's homogenous, but what is it at the total available market? Is it a $10 million book? It's probably not something I'd go after, right? I'd go after something that has a bigger pond to swim in.
Yeah. So something like if I was really big into trading baseball cards, like maybe I wouldn't start a niche. Maybe I wouldn't start a niche on baseball card trading retail centers, just because there aren't a lot of them, and they're not big exposures,
and more of a dying industry
as well.
Too. A little bit too, right? What are growing industries too is what I would look at. What are new emerging markets, trends too? That's always a great spot because you're first in. I had a broker here local to me who's really passionate about the marijuana business, and he was passionate about it before nobody else was, and it was kind of his pet project for a long time, and he ended up growing this big MGA that then got bought by something. So it can turn into something, right? If you're first in too, and you have a passion about it in an emerging, growing space.
Yeah, if you're John, if you're that particular person, like you're when cannabis was first becoming legal in certain spots, and there started to become like trade shows. If you're first there, then you're probably getting invited to those trade shows to speak about risk management and insurance.
Easy. Exactly. Crypto's another kind of new one, right? It's only being bought by big entities right now. Like, how do you ensure the wallet of that thing is like a whole new topic that's coming up. But there's all these emerging trends. Like, how do you pay attention to them? Do you want to be first in on them? How big could they be? Do you have passion for it? Those are the things.
Yeah. John, you had mentioned when I was thinking of niche, I was thinking predominantly of like business sectors, so restaurants, contractors, cannabis, things like that. You brought up line of business, right? Like that is also potentially an area where you could niche, and I'm thinking of like really complex areas of coverage, like professional lines, E&O, D&O for particular companies where
system people focus on them. Yeah, EPL, D&O, yep.
Yeah, it's so complex and so legal. Yeah, it's so complex and so legal, John, that you almost need or want, like you have to develop a specialization, because it's not the property that's the problem. It's not, it is like that is what's driving for, let's say attorneys or accountants. It's their professional lines that's kind of driving everything, and you almost want to not only pick a niche in a sector, but maybe even pick a niche in a line of business.
Yep, absolutely. There's some social services brokers out there. That's what they focus on, right? There's all kinds of different ways you can find your niche, right? And however you lead to it, and like I said, what's local to you? What are you passionate about? What do you have history in? Those things can all lend to you finding where your place is. Yeah.
I anecdotal story, but I know a broker here, Angelo. I'm also in the state of Florida. He does one thing. he does flood insurance for condominium associations because there's so many of them.
Yep.
And I remember he said, well, don't you write the wind coverage or the fire coverage? He said, if they're coming to me specifically for that, I send them to partners of mine who specialize in that. He's like, what I am very good at is flood, and what I am very good at is flood for condo associations. And in Florida, that happens to be a critical mass of that sort of stuff. So John and Angela, it just goes to show you, like, that's a niche within a niche. And still, when you drill down that far, there's still plenty of business for this and
Right.
he does 8+ figures in premium around this. So there's plenty. So like you can keep thinking through the niche and keep sort of driving down. But is there, Angela, when you were getting started and you were transitioning over to the commercial area, how much was continuing education important for you to be able to begin to service those niches?
It's huge, so you can understand what you're offering or what you can offer your clients. Continuing education is how you pretty much you can sell a policy and what are the guidelines that you need to have in order to sell that policy. What else? It's pretty like you need to have that continuing education because it's so much throughout. Insurance is there's so much things and there's so many you can say regulations, and you need to have a clear understanding every time, depending on if it's property, if it's general liability, if it's workers' comp, if it's commercial auto. You need to understand exactly what you're offering the client. So continuing education plays a huge part, and also continuing education. There's rules and regulations that change over time. So you need to understand, hey, there's new codes or new regulations that you need to abide to now than they used to before.
Angela, how often do you think you need to engage with your policyholders because of things like that? Like I'm just thinking of this year, we've had issues with tariffs. We've had issues with deportations, right? Like there feels like there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. How often do you have to engage with your clients to make sure that they understand what is happening? Like how much do they lean on you to make sure that you're keeping them abreast of what's actually happening out in the economic world?
All the time, I'd say on a daily basis, if you can say. Not only that is you have carriers that will cover, let's say, for example, if you go into the contractor side. With Coterie, the subcontractors are not covered under the Coterie policy. With other carriers, yes, you have other carriers that will cover subcontractors. But it depends on what they're doing. So if they're pretty much subbing out a lot of work, then maybe Coterie is not the best option for them. Maybe Coterie is more of a specialized insurance, which is more of an artisanal contractor, where, hey, I'm a carpenter or I'm a handyman, and then we'll know exactly, hey, this might be the best fit for you because you understand the product and you understand what Coterie offers.
Yeah. How often have you had to lecture? I having been an agent, I know a lot of contractors in particular will tell me, yeah, we don't go on the roof. And then you find out that they actually go on the roof. How often do you have to lecture your clients around like, hey, your insurance policy is not going to cover you here? You like how often do you have to engage with them to kind of like center them back to like proper risk management so that the policy is actually fitting them?
I'd say more than often, just because a lot of people think they can do anything they want, but they have to understand that, hey, there's a particular risk that's going to cover you for exactly for, let's say, for example, if you're a handyman, yes, there's handymans that will go up on a roof. But is your policy going to cover that? Just make sure your policy covers that. And you got to more like consult them and say, hey, this policy will not cover you for any roofing. I just want to make sure that you're not going on up on a roof. Because if you are, even if you're touching the roof, even if you're just looking or trying to get up or clean gutters, your policy may not cover that. And we just want to make sure you're getting the correct coverage for what exactly you're doing. Because if not, then it's pretty much the carrier can say something happens, the carrier can just say, you know what, you're not covered for that.
John, what's Coterie's responsibility, or what's Coterie's philosophy around keeping agents up to date on, hey, here's what's happening in the world, or here's some risk management profiles? Like how does Coterie engage with specialists as well to make sure that the agents are up to speed in terms of what's happening in the world so they can keep their policyholders up to speed?
Look, great question. I think it's really dependent upon what the action in the market is, right? You know, the tariffs are going to make loss costs go up, especially property loss costs are going to go up as a result of tariffs. I mean, just getting goods and materials are probably going to go up. At what rate? You know, it's kind of a moving target right now. But we try to take into consideration macroeconomic events and be able to succinctly educate our agents based on how it's going to impact the insurance market, and if it will or if it won't. Sometimes, right, there's a lot of hysteria and nothing really will change in the end in our eyes. You know, could and ultimately, but where we see it from our standpoint, at least, and how it's going to affect Coterie business in the end, might affect other areas of the industry we might not touch on. You know, we are focusing on ourselves, obviously. We try to be a resource on other things too, but not, you know, there's only so much we can do in the company we are. We also like to educate our brokers exactly what is and what is not covered, like Angelo spoke to, right, with subcontractors. Like for us, we really, our product is designed, we want the contractor that's doing the work. We want to cover that one, not somebody they hire out to do work. Yep. So our policy is designed that way, and our policies are designed in there's other nuances around our policies. We talk about finding your niche as an agent. We find our niche as a, you know, MGA, full stack MGA capacity provider. What we want to be on in terms of risk profile, what we do not want to be on. So we try to stay within those guardrails as best as possible when we can. And even when we're thinking about leasing new product, how does that fit that mold and that philosophy too for us?
No, that's interesting, John. When you guys think about new products, do you go to some of the agents that are already Coterie producers and speak to them about, like, hey, you know, what is it that you need? What products do you want? And how should this be structured? How do you look at, like, how can this be structured so it can be competitive?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've had agency councils in the past. We bring them in and we'll bring in competitive intel into that. You know, what are our competitors doing? What kind of forms, coverages? Just look at what is needed for the client to be covered properly. And we will talk about, like, what exposure we actually want to be on with agents and help them guide us on what forms and what, you know, and then have our insurance team go to work to provide, you know, either matching some wording that might be out in the marketplace and or creating our own, depending upon what is needed.
Yeah. And Angelo, how often do agents go to not just Coterie, but your capacity markets and say, hey, we're seeing this thing, and you know, what you should, or there really is an opportunity for you to change the language or do these other things? How often do you provide advice back to the capacity markets?
So it's rare, but we do it. And Coterie actually reaches out to us quite frequently, if you can say. And they want to understand, hey, what are you guys looking at in the industry? What are you guys getting? We just want to understand. We want to make sure that if we can fit a specific market, then we can go after it. So we'll take will take the risk, if you can say. And we've seen it a lot. And when I first started insurance back in commercial insurance back in 2015, we saw that a lot with roofers. So with roofers, there was basically no market with roofers at the beginning. Now almost every carrier is getting into the roofing industry. So it's a win-win for the insurance agent and for the insurance companies, but they need to make sure that they're taking on that risk properly and correctly. But because if they step into a roofing risk and then they're offering low premiums, they're going to take a huge loss.
Yeah. It's funny how much the world has changed, because when I was an agent, roofers were like a no-no in the business. There's so much that went wrong with it. So glad to see that that's got clarified. Now, insurance agents and brokers, Angelo, you are in the business of, you monetize your specialization through your insurance transactions. I'm curious as to how you use your specialization, and John, how you've seen other agents use their specializations to market. What are the different ways that you can get in front of the specific niche prospects that you want? Like I am thinking about restaurants. Not that I have any particular expertise other than I like food, but like there's a ton of restaurants. You could potentially go door to door around them, but there are probably some marketing mechanisms that can scale your efforts where you can place yourself as a subject matter expert in that space and get a lot more inbound activity from the specialization versus your producers having to do a lot of outbound activity. Angelo, why don't we start with you? How do you market Quick and Easy, and how do you find the contractors that you want, the restaurants that you want?
So how do I market? It's very simple, especially, let's say with Coterie, we can kind of, let's tie it in together, if you can say. Coterie specializes actually in restaurants. So it's a great market for Coterie and contractors as well. So what we do is we may reach out, let's say contractors at this point. How we market is pretty much, we'll say local contractor. We got a local contractor in-house. We sold them a policy with Coterie. They're a pressure washing. So what I would do is I would say, you know what? Can you do a quick post on us of how you liked our service on Nextdoor? So we use our digital platforms, either Nextdoor, Facebook, Instagram, and just write a quick review on us. And as soon as you know it, everybody, their friends, family, maybe subcontractors that they work with, they're calling us pretty much saying, hey, I heard John called you and he's a pressure washer and you gave him a great rate for his pressure washing company. I'm not sure if you can help me out. And that's pretty much, it's very simple. And it's actually a game changer because it's huge, you know. Somebody posts something on Nextdoor, and then as soon as you know it, all your neighbors around you are calling you, hey, I'm looking for insurance. I see that you're doing insurance for contractors. So it's huge.
Yeah. John, how have you seen different agents who specialize? How are they marketing?
It's really across the board. I mean, it kind of depends upon the niche that you're in. You know, Angelo talks about a great way that he's found. I think that's awesome for him. I think there's associations you can join. I've seen agents join to be able to get into their niche. Like I said, franchise owners, right? They get in with a brand. The franchise owner gets them to the franchise, and all of a sudden they might become a preferred broker for the franchise operation, right? That's a way. These smaller, newer franchises are great, like talking, emerging markets. We've had a couple brokers in our network get in early with a new franchise that's all of a sudden is starting to catch wildfire. They're, growing 20 locations a month or something, 15 locations a month, and they get up and they become one of the preferred brokers for that. That's a fantastic way. Any way you can sell that you would save the business owner, you understand the risk and the things that they're concerned about. So you talked about restaurants here, how have you saved others from a loss that maybe they wouldn't have if they weren't with your organization or your with your agency, and the coverage that you provided and made sure that your clients had? I think claim stories always seem to resonate. I feel like with clients, because that's the one thing. That's why you buy insurance, right? It's when the worst thing happens. And usually a lot of small business owners, that's, a lot of their personal capital is tied up in that business, and a lot of their personal wealth is tied up into the protection of that business and keeping it operating. And if it does go down, how do they protect that?
John, I love the claims angle, because not that you want to scare the bejesus out of them, but you want it to be crystal clear of like, hey, here's a mistake that was made, right? And look what it cost them. Don't make that mistake, right? Sort of thing.
Yep.
And you said the word story. We're conducting a webinar here, right? I think we're in a day and age where a lot of agents can actually flex their subject matter expertise, right, by blogging, podcasting. I think you brought up the cannabis example, like becoming part of those cannabis trade associations and kind of finding or forcing your way onto the stage to be able to speak. Like those seem like incredible ways to establish credibility at scale, right? Like, John, have you seen agents blogging, podcasting, essentially like being a broadcaster for that specialization?
Yeah, I have. A flood specialist is, speaking of, there was a flood one that I knew I don't know if we're talking about the same one or not, but has a pretty big social presence. And
I think I know who you're talking about.
So yeah. So there's not just that person, but there are ultimately other examples of it as well. And being able to get out their market and their expertise. The trade associations you see pretty heavily attended by some of the big brokers too, some of the power brokers. You talk about the national retailers; those brokers often attack those trade shows and trade associations and work their way on there. So you might have some competition, just depending upon your niche and the industry you're going to. You might join some competitors there, have the same idea as you. Usually there's enough business to go around, and how do you gain the trust of that association? How do you make your way in? Usually it's a relational thing, and some pre-existing relationship you most likely have to gain trust and credibility to be able to compete with others that might already be there as well.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the same person on the flood side. I think it's Chris Green, and he has become like he has become like a personality. Like he has thousands of people who follow him on YouTube.
He's quite the personality,
right? And I think this is part of the message I'm hoping that we can communicate to the audience of, I don't even think this is just like young professional agents who are just getting started. I think even like legacy agents as well can learn a lesson from a Chris Green who just picked a peril and just focuses only on that peril, but is essentially, it will use a pun, flooding the market with content on that peril, where things go wrong, how people buy the coverage wrong, the difference between, the national...
The gap, right? Ultimately, he found the wedge, he found the gap in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that clients were being underserved, and now he's looking to use any platform he can really to highlight what a big gap it is. And he is absolutely correct in the gap that existed with flood. I think people are undercovered in flood, don't buy it enough. The frequency with the way storms are happening, I think it's, there's stats out there I can't remember, but the frequency is going up dramatically, and there's a lot more risk to clients on the flood side, and they really need to pay attention to that. And I think he was finding that gap, that wedge. And then how do you blow it out? He found lots of ways to do it. And there's lots of different ways to do it. So.
Yeah, I really hats off to him, and maybe we can figure out a way to squeeze one of his videos in at some point. But there are trade-offs to niching and specialization, and I think one of the biggest ones is one of the hardest things that humans have to do, which is to say no to business. Right? I can hear already agents saying, "Well, wait a second. I know this person is coming to me. I know I don't specialize in it, but why should I turn the money away?" Angelo, that must have happened to you. How hard is it to say no?
It's extremely hard, especially if it's a friend or maybe somebody you know, and hey, you sell commercial insurance, but why can't you sell me a policy? I cut trees for a living, and you're cutting 100-foot trees. That it becomes really risky, if you can say. And it's like, I have no carriers that will definitely do that. And unfortunately, I have to say no because I just don't have a market for it. It's just impossible. And if you don't say no, then you're just leading them through a wrong path. And that's not what you want to do. You want to make sure you're leading them the correct way. And especially if you don't specialize in it, you need to know the product. So if you don't specialize in it, and if you don't know the product, you may be giving them wrong coverages.
I think I think you nailed it there. Like, I think oftentimes you have to say no, or else you're doing them a disservice because you don't specialize in that area. John, if you were advising someone to give that exact example that I just gave you, one of you, Coterie's agents.
We do it at scale here at Coterie, right? I mean, we found our niche, and we are only going to play ball and accept risk where we want to play, and we do that because we know ultimately we're obviously looking more of a capacity provider, and we're loss ratio and having good performance. But ultimately, we got to find what we want to do and what we want, where we want to play ball, and where we have confidence in our underwriting ability. From an agent perspective, that's got to be really hard, right? Because that is a totally different ballgame than even us as a capacity provider, where that is actual revenue, material revenue that you could just, provide a service to, but maybe not provide the best service to. And I think that's what you got to think about when you are trying to build this book and build this niche, is like, how can I feel confident in saying to my client that I've actually covered them properly, I've given them everything that they need to keep their business safe from an unexpected event. So, and sometimes you may not have that confidence to be able to say that, right? Angelo used the example of a tree trimmer doing 100-foot trees, right? There's probably some specialty coverages that need to be added on a policy like that, to be able to properly cover them. And do you have access to that market? You might not. To those coverages, do you know what they even are? Those are the things you really got to ask yourself. And it's also opportunity cost, right? It's one of those founding economic principles. You start focusing on something, then you're not focusing on your niche, right? And it pulls you away from being in that niche and focusing and going as deep as you can. So if you start spinning your wheels, being too much of a generalist, you're kind of everywhere, but you're nowhere at the same time. So, being able to say no to that can help you hone in on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build, that niche that you're trying to build ultimately.
Yeah. So question for both of you is how, given the answer that you guys have just provided, how important is it to have peers and colleagues that you can refer that business over to? Angelo, how often do you say, I can't do it, but John Smith down the street, he might be able to do it. Do you have working relationships? I almost feel like with specialization, because you're generating so much inbound activity, that you are going to come across lots of business that you don't know the market well, you don't know the coverage well, you don't know the niche well. Do you refer them elsewhere? What do you do?
Yes. So we try to keep everybody as happy as possible, if you can say. But yeah, there's a lot of times where I can't help you. Unfortunately, you're doing, let's say, for example, a roofer, and you're looking for workers' comp. Fortunately, the only market that you have is the state pool insurance. So I would refer it to them. Or let's say, for example, if you're looking for a specific surplus line kind of insurance where they're doing things over 3 stories, building structures over 3 stories, doing framing, metal erection. Unfortunately, we don't have a market for that. So I can definitely refer it to one of our agencies down the street that can probably take on that, and they're surplus licensed. So yeah, definitely. It's good to have that so they can still count on you for certain things, but for other things like high risk policies, then you do have to refer them elsewhere.
Yeah. John, does Coterie get into any situations where in the Coterie family of agents, if someone brings something in, you may want to say, hey, you may want to talk to this other agent who has specialization. Do you ever make like those kinds of referrals?
We haven't gotten that developed yet. I would love to get there at some point. That just in-app is a little hard because it's such a digital experience. You know, when I receive submissions, when I ran a desk as an underwriter, I would definitely do some of that. And when I was a field person, I would refer agents because I had the handle on the market, and say, hey, you know, for example, trucking. Everyone get a trucking submission and be like, well, we don't do trucking, right? Like the trucking market obviously has gone crazy, but back in the day, there was quite a few markets that had appetite for trucking, and I had my handle on the markets that were competitive, got good agent feedback, you know, and to say, we don't do it, but here are the 3 or 4 that I'd call that have been recommended by my fellow agents that I know do this business, and have them be able to be a resource for agents to help place some business as well. And or here are the agents too, that if you don't want to place this business, maybe you go to this agent, right, and be able to connect 2 agents together. But having a network, like Angelo said, is I think really key, because then the client still sees you as a trusted advisor, even if we don't place the business for them. Because the client will still think Angelo knew what to do with me, even though Angelo's not his focus, his specialty, right? So I'm going to go back to Angelo in the end for other things if I need them.
Yeah. I think that's, to me, that's a critical element of the Angelo you brought up very early on, that you develop trust, right? Like one way to develop trust is to stay true to your niches, and also like, hey, I can't help you, but someone else can, right? And now you have integrity around that. You didn't try to force a square peg into a round hole in something like that. You were able to get them to the right place. So now they know they can come to you for other advice as well when around that, because if you can't help them, you might be 1 degree of separation from someone who can.
That's true. Perfect. Yeah. You said it clearly. And you build trust with the customer. Not only that, you're also helping them out, you know, and with insurance, sometimes it's about helping, you know, sometimes you're leading them in the right direction. So I know sometimes you want to take on the business all the time. And of course, everybody wants to make money and you want to write all the policies, but sometimes the client's happier if you lead them in the right direction, just like you said. Yeah. They're happier. They're going to come back to you regardless, or they're going to refer a friend or a family member or a colleague and then say, hey, Angelo helped me with this. He can probably help you with that.
Yeah. I think it builds good karma.
Correct.
You know, so we're gonna end this webinar a little bit the way we started it, which is why a niche. John and Angelo, we're gonna do a thought exercise. Okay, you're both starting over. You're both let's say college grads. You see, we'll use that Will Smith movie where he saw the stockbroker with the Ferrari and he's like, I want that. You see an insurance agent with a Ferrari, you're like, I want to be an insurance agent. Okay. To John and Angelo, you're starting over. What do you think you would specialize in, and how do you think you would be successful at it? Don't.
You want to go first?
It's up to you.
Yeah, your call, Angelo.
So, guy with the Ferrari. First of all, I'll probably ask him, hey, what do you do for a living? And then he says insurance agent. But let's say he specializes in a specific niche. Let's say he is writing only commercial lines, but let's say he's only doing retail. I pretty much would go
do whatever he's doing.
Do whatever he's doing exactly. Say, hey, how do you market yourself? Are you doing any videos? Are you doing anything that I can market myself? And pretty much take him on as like a mentor, and then try to understand the industry. I actually worked in the restaurant industry myself, or you can say in the retail industry as well. So understanding the industry and understanding what they exactly need, slip and falls on a restaurant, maybe in a retail, theft, vandalism. So try to understand the industry, go after any, let's say, videos, try to do some Instagram, some YouTube, and pretty much try to lock it down and see how you can progress and find a carrier that really specializes and offers great rates for that specific industry.
Yeah. John?
Great answer. I'd do something probably similar, but I like I said, the emerging trends earlier is probably what I'd focus on. I mean, I did that a lot in my career, focused on insurtech. I just thought the digitization of what we're doing would help underwriting and help brokers enable them to be better within their agencies and provide better customer service and a better client experience to their clients. So, crypto is one area. AI, like what's going to happen with AI? There's going to need to be insurance around AI, I'm sure, of some sort, some risk management tools around that. What are they going to look like? What are they going to be? I don't even know. You can even go like within the restaurant industry, like there's pickleball places that are like restaurants with pickleball sprouting up all over the place, right? There's all kinds of different, like, what is kind of this exploding trend? How can you jump on board the wave of that trend and if you have a passion in it, that's, double down into that, right? Well, can you relate whatever you're passionate about usually comes out in great success because you want to put in the extra hours, you want to put extra effort to understand absolutely everything and provide the best service possible.
Yeah.
So probably some combination of those two would be what I would focus on starting out today.
Yeah. I think between the both of you, I think a lesson learned here around the niche is either Angelo, you said you worked in restaurants and you worked in retail, so you had that experience, right? I think experience matters, right? Like understanding, and John, to your point, I do think passion matters as well because selling insurance is challenging, right? But if you have a passion around the niche itself, you're just monetizing with insurance, but you're still passionate about that thing. I do think we will look back 50 years from now, John, and say, what was this emerging trend with pickleball? How did that happen? Whatever.
Pickleball. Exactly. Why? That might be a flash in the pan. I just picked it out because that's what came to my brain. The other one, I'm actually a personal passion. I'm a sports guy. It's like, and these contracts in sports are getting crazy, and every team is buying coverage now against some of those contracts. So, like for me, that might be one of them too. It's like, that just kind of came to my brain here late, but it's fascinating the coverage they're getting against, Joel Embiid blows out his knee. Like they want him to play less games because then it triggers coverage, So it's like there's some funniness happening too with all of that.
I don't know if there's an emergent trend with blown out Achilles tendons, but in this NBA basketball,
younger guys too. That's younger players. It's very uncommon.
Maybe we want to insure for that. I will end this with like my own personal story around specialization because I did start a flood MGA, and John and Angelo, to your point, I did have an expertise in catastrophe, but it was market feedback that guided me. It was conversations with some senior property brokers who basically told me like the flood market was a mess on the commercial side. And then juxtapose that to the earthquake market, which is also catastrophe. And I remember the broker's words very clearly. He said, I can get a 2-year earthquake quote within 48 hours. I can't get a flood quote within 2 weeks. If you can do for flood, what you did for earthquake, it's automatic. You're going to be successful, and we would buy that product from you. And that was the direction we went. So John, to your point, it was trying to stack together my passion, my expertise, but also, is the market big enough to support it? And with the market feedback, it was like, yeah, clearly it can support it. So with that said, this has been the power of the niche, how specialization drives agency growth and producer success. And so I want to thank my guests, John Poucher and Angelo Ocampo, for joining me. John, Angelo, thank you. And for everyone that's watching, thank you very much. If you have questions, ask the questions in the LinkedIn box. We will answer them. And until Microsoft pulls the plug on LinkedIn, this webinar will remain live on LinkedIn, hopefully forever. So Angelo, John, thank you.
Thank you.